Hi again, this is going to be a comparison of the tracking data that I get from ARCore when I do basically the same thing that I did with the HoloLens. So this is with my Galaxy S10 Plus. And I did a data set of tracking data weeks ago, so that's why I already have these red lines. So I'm basically just going to follow them around and show you what happens. From when I've visualized this before, all that I really notice is the vertical drift. But I basically, when I recorded this data set, I started at these bike racks and I ended at those bike racks. So what I was more concerned about was whether or not the loop closed, and it did, with the exception of vertical drift. So, yeah. Each of these squares is basically a camera frame that was taken from the video when I did this recording. I basically just spit out all of the camera transforms to a text file, and then I render it again here. You can see that those lines are way higher than my phone is right now. I don't remember holding the phone that high, but it's possible that I started the recording lower last time. I don't remember, it's been a while. I guess the main thing for us to see is that it doesn't get confused near the trees the way that the HoloLens did. My hypothesis last time was that since I think the HoloLens basically just uses depth data and iterative closest point to try to align its tracking, things that you can't really get depth from, like foliage or glass, will really confuse it. ARCore uses like temporal smoothing, so it can sort of remove reflections, and I guess it probably also removes foliage, and that kind of helps it focus on the path instead of the foliage, so it can track better, or something like that. The point is, it's pretty good for mobile AR, because this phone doesn't have a depth sensor either. So it's basically just like visual tracking, plus the IMU, plus some algorithmic tricks. So you can sort of see the vertical drift. Well, the height now looks more correct than it was last time. To be honest, I don't remember if, so this is probably the path that I took last time. I walked more like through the middle of the path instead of to the right, and then I was sort of like walking along the building. So like those reflections, in this case the glass is really shiny, so the reflections sort of trick they would sort of trick any kind of reconstruction method into thinking that there's like an actual mesh back there. But for tracking, it doesn't really matter, because say that everything was reflected, they would still be static features, at least for the purposes of tracking. Like, it still gives you useful information about where the camera moved between frames, so it's not a big deal for this. For reconstruction, yeah, though, it would break it. Well, it wouldn't break it, it would just create meshes behind the windows. Okay, I don't know. Pretty sure I didn't walk through the mulch here. So there might be some horizontal drift. But like I said earlier in the recording, I'm also not entirely sure that I started in the same place. I'm not using a marker to initialize the data, so if I want the trajectory to align, I sort of just have to start the recording in the same place. You can see that the vertical drift is pretty extreme now. I know I wasn't holding my camera down on my feet, but In terms of horizontal, oh my god, it's a rabbit or something. Oh, what the? Getting assaulted by the weirdest creatures right now. Bug just kamikazed into me. There's a beaver or a rabbit or something over there. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's this little kink in the trajectory. I don't remember if I actually did that when I made this recording originally. But you can see the trajectory is still more or less following the path, which is more than the HoloLens could do at this point. Coming up is where the HoloLens broke last time. Except when I did the HoloLens recording, I was facing the other way, I guess. But even so, it's not going to confuse ARCore. Okay, that's like, that horizontal drift is getting a little stronger. It's still probably not more than like a meter from the original recording, but it's still there. And also note that this original data set with the red lines would have had drift when I recorded it, and there would be extra drift from when I'm doing this recording right now. So it sort of doubles the amount of drift, I guess. But anyway, you can see that it ends up basically right back where I started.